Little known facts about Boris Johnson. The journey is from bullied boy to British Prime Minister. British politics and resignation of Prime Minister Boris Johnson are causing the world's press to spend a lot of ink. Not in a hurry to discuss the reason why Prime Minister Boris Johnson resigned. Let's learn about Boris Johnson, biography, and journey to become Prime Minister. In fact, it's not now that the name Boris Johnson is widely noticed by the public. The British Prime Minister, with unpolished blonde hair, has a lively personality and somewhat clumsy appearance and bold speaking style. No one is afraid to be the main topic of discussion among commentators for many years. The path to becoming Prime Minister is not easy. From a bullied boy suffering from an ear infection to the point of being deaf, to a journalist, the foreign minister, and now Prime Minister. Looking at the journey that Boris Johnson has gone through to reach this peak of power, people understand the saying, "No road is trammed with roses." The British Prime Minister childhood was associated with a series of days when he was bullied by friends, when he moved house, but above all, he stood up to defend himself, assess himself, and pursue himself his ambition to become the king of the world. Boris Johnson was born on June 19, 1964 in the US in a family with a tradition of journalism and politics. From the time he was born until the age of 14, his family moved 32 times across 2 continents due to the work of his father, Stanley Johnson, from New York to Canada, and then to London and then back to Washington. His mother, Stanley Johnson, had to drop out of Oxford University to follow her husband to the US after giving birth to Boris at the age of 32. At the age of 8, Boris Johnson was called deaf due to otitis media with infusion and called shy. He was lovingly cared by his mother, but his father demanded that his children to be tough and highly competitive. Winning is a priority, whether it's the fastest runner jumping the highest or the one with most blonde hair. The father is a great motivation to have the weak boy nurture his dream of becoming the king of the world. The 2 oldest children of Johnson family were sent by her parents to a private school in England. That day, the boy Johnson was always bullied by his friends, by his tutor and his family in Brussels, Belgium. In order to protect himself, he turned himself into a true Englishman from the way he spoke to the choice of clothes. By the time he entered into school, the shy version had changed to the flamboyant Boris, even though he was a student with good academic ability. Boris Johnson has made many impressions that made his teacher angry many times due to his arrogant attitude. In 1983, Johnson enrolled at Oxford University to study classics at the Balliol School. Here, Johnson spent many remarkable achievements, and it seemed that the highest awards are destined for a talented but naughty young man. In 1907, shortly after graduating from university, young Boris quickly married the rich and beautiful Angela Mostyn Owen. Then he got an internship at the Times of London, but did not receive any sympathy of the editorial office. Even he was fired by the editorial office for misquoting in an article about ecological discoveries electricity. During this period, Boris has ambition to become the president of Oxford Union. However, he failed in his first election, but that did not discourage him. Failure is the mother of success. The Boris 2.0 version had changed the way of the campaigning using resources from admirers. He discussed his persuasive campaign speech in humor, and he eventually became president of Oxford Union. Boris soon found a new job as a Daily Telegraph thanks to his acquaintance with the editor-in-chief. Young Boris found success in many newsrooms and was sent to work as a correspondent in Brussels at the age of 35. And Borish has made a name for himself in the 5 years by almost single-handedly developing compelling and conversative articles disparaging EU decision. Although he was unpopular with his colleagues in Europe, at home, the name Boris gradually became known to many British people. His articles were also well received. In 1990, Boris Johnson was appointed editor-in-chief of Spectre magazine. His period for Boris, he set his status power and review in it. Thus, Boris Johnson spent many years working as journalist as editor-in-chief of and prestigious magazine before entering politics. With the starting point as a journalist, Boris Johnson's political path also encountered many difficulties. In 2001, Boris was nominated as Conservative Party candidate of the town of Helland-on-Thames. In 2004, he was fired by Conservative leader Michael Howard over a lying scandal. In 2005, when David Cameron was elected Conservative Party leader, Johnson returned as Minister of Higher Education. In 2008, Boris withdrew from Parliament and defeated Ken Livingstone of the Labour Party to become Mayor of London. During this time, Mrs. Boris has gained a remarkable reputation, notably as London bike sharing service named after him, Bike Boris. In 2012, he was re-elected Mayor of London, once again narrowly beating rival Ken Livingstone. In August 2014, Boris announced that he would run for office in the upcoming election. In May 2015, he won a seat in Parliament in Uxbridge. Meanwhile, winning at the beginning of 2016, the press's controversy heated up. Mrs. Boris declared that Britain will have a great future when it leaves the European Union. On July 13, 2016, he was appointed as Foreign Minister. In his new role, he visited many EU countries that he has previously commanded and convinced the world that Brexit would not mean leaving the war. February 21, 2016, Boris officially announced his support for the UK to leave the EU when the US President Barack Obama advised the UK to stay in the EU. Boris has outright denounced him as hypocritical. In July 2018, Boris resigned as Foreign Minister because of his opposing stand to May Theresa. Since he has become one of the strongest critics of Mrs. May in Parliament. In September 2018, he said that the Brexit deal Mrs. May presented was worse than UK's stay in the EU. He supports Brexit, which means that the UK leaves the EU without a deal. On March 2019, 27, Mrs. May announced her resignation as Prime Minister. If the Brexit deal she negotiated with the EU was not approved by the Parliament, immediately after this announcement of Ms. May, many people discussed who will be the place, and Boris Johnson is a bright candidate to top of this list. After the Brexit deal was repeatedly rejected in Parliament, Ms. May announced her resignation in emotional speech that officially launched the campaign for her position. Finally, on July 23, the person named to be the owner of the house at 10 Downing Street was former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson. He won overwhelmingly against his opponent. With this victory, he became the new leader of the Conservative Party, succeeding Prime Minister Theresa May from July 2004. Experiencing a turbulent 3 years incumbent journey, Boris is considered unknown, creating many interesting scenarios for international political observers. Boris promised in advance an uncertain future awaits a UK. Spending his youth to reach the peak of power, Boris Johnson's journey to becoming Prime Minister is not easy. After carrying the suitcase and leaving the house at 10 Downing Street, the question of most audience was information about Boris Johnson's potential successor. Thank you so much for watching the video with us. If you like it, please give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video to watch more interesting videos in the future.